I want to play up those 2 points. One, the multiplicity of forms, and then two, the interaction between professional liability and cyber. And this is really for, I'll kind of point it at Mike initially, but really it's open to anyone. When you're advising clients, or it's really more Meredith and Mike, when you're advising clients, how do you deal with the fact that those 17 different forms, unlike property, unlike CGL, unlike even in some cases D&O or E&O, you're dealing with forms that the language is, there's very little uniformity. How are you addressing that? Because as we heard from the last panel, the slightest kind of chink in that language armor creates huge issues for both the client and the carrier. Mike, do you want to just kind of?
Yeah, I'll take first shot at that. Luckily, I'm only dealing with 3 or 4 carrier forms because my practice is predominantly for very large companies, and so there's only a few companies that will write those types. But even just 4 forms, I can barely keep track of the wording issues, whether you're looking at the conduct exclusions. One of the forms excludes reckless conduct, whereas the others don't. Definition of loss or damages, how the policies deal with liquidated damages, which is very important for this line of coverage. It is unbelievable. Just to give you an example, I used to, early on in my career in this line of coverage, create kind of a matrix of does it do this, does it do that, and then I just gave up. I don't do that anymore for clients because it's too hard to compare one form to the next. So when a client has me compare, alternative quotes or advise on an alternative quote, there's a huge disclaimer at the front that says I'm not representing or warranting that I'm spotting all the issues, and I just do the best I can of here are issues to consider on the wording for the insuring agreements, the definitions, exclusions, conditions, based on claims experience, based on other forms in the market that I'm familiar with. But I don't want to say it's a crapshoot, but it is one of the most difficult lines of coverage I've ever advised on. So I don't give representations and warranties to clients. I tell them you do the best that you can do, and then you continue to monitor and try to amend the language at each year based on more knowledge you acquire from claims, more knowledge you acquire from working in the subject matter, and continuing reviewing forms.
Okay, yeah, I guess Meredith, the thing that scares me or bothers me the most is when I get the question from the client, can you give me a policy comparison? How do you do that with these 17 forms?
You don't.
Right.
You don't. Well, first and foremost, from the clientele that I work with at Wells Fargo is much different than the larger accounts. And we do have some large accounts. Most larger accounts do not. They still need a lot of education. Period. Middle market clients need double the education. They rely on you as their broker, middle market, and to just know the policy forms. When I'm delivering them a proposal and talking to them about terms and conditions, they want to know, Meredith, even if I ask questions, I know the answer or I'm going to get them the answer. And they really don't want to see the policy comparisons. Middle market clients don't want to see, the client executives, our internal customers, want to see those policy comparisons, which we don't find very helpful or useful. So what you do is you actually, you'll pick maybe 5 or 6 very important coverage, whether it be coverage trigger, notification, fraud wording, 5 or 6 very important, and then you can definitely make a distinction between all of those. However, doing policy comparisons for 17 different markets, just doesn't make sense. And the middle market clients don't tend to get anything out of it. The middle market clients rely on you, and I'm sure that to an extent, the larger clients as well, rely on you to know what you're doing in this space, and they rely on you to know that you're placing the right coverage and that you've got them covered. So it's a little bit more onerous on us in that aspect because we're not really physically giving them a product or a comparison that they can make their own decision with.
Can I just supplement what Meredith said? Because I think that's very important from a technique I've seen employed and I've also done, which is that when the broker comes back from going to market with several quotes, if the client can focus on 2 or 3, and then rather than try to do a comparison of the entire policy, what Meredith just said I think is a great technique, which is, let's, as a team, risk manager, in-house counsel, information technology, whatever the client team is, broker, and if you have outside counsel, great. If not, okay, fine. But let's figure out what are the most important, 3 to 5 issues that we want to make sure we understand how these competing quotes differ. Could be allocation, could be the defense provisions, could be any number of things not specific to, cyber coverage, but just general basic issues that you can have an easier time putting in a comparison matrix to help the client make a decision.
And it's also industry specific. You're going to want certain things for a healthcare organization or a healthcare client different than you're going to want for a retailer. So you have to actually guide your efforts to what's important for that specific client in that industry class. It's not the same across the board.
I think the point should also be made that, versus 5 or 6 years ago, I think the degree of harmonization between the key leading forms in the market, everyone has converged on some more common terms and some more common coverages, and it's not, you used to try and do the coverage comparisons 6, 7 years ago, and you try and sort it all out, and as these two have laid out, I mean, you're looking at a dog's breakfast of different definitions, different exclusions, different coverage parts, and it's just, you're comparing apples to Chevrolets. You just couldn't do it. I think